Hello, it's me again. Today's lesson is on simple interest, and the purpose of today's lesson is to understand how to use the simple interest formula. But before we do that, we have to identify our key terms. Our first term is interest, and that's the amount earned or paid for the use of money. So if you earn interest, that's a positive situation. You're going to gain that money. But if you have to pay back interest, that's going to be a negative situation. You don't want to have to pay extra money. Then we have principal, and that's the amount of money either deposited or borrowed, depending on the situation. Simple interest, that's the interest that is earned or paid only on the principal. Our annual interest rate, that's the percent of the principal earned or paid per year. And finally, we have balance. That's the sum of the interest and the principal. And you can think of balance also as the total amount. So our simple interest formula, what does that mean? So what that means is to find interest, we are going to multiply principal. And remember, that's going to be a dollar amount. That's either how much you deposit or borrow, times rate. Rate will always be a percentage, times time. And time is always in years. Because remember in math, when we have variables right next to each other, it means to multiply. So let's look at example 1 to help us better identify those terms. George puts $1,560 into a savings account. The account pays 2.5% simple interest. How much interest will he earn in 3 years? So this is an example of positive interest. So remember, the principal is how much you deposit or borrow. In this situation, George is depositing money into his savings account. The rate is 2.5% and the time is 3 years. So if we use this simple interest formula, we're going to multiply the principal times the rate. Now I'm going to change that percent to a decimal, because you might see that as a decimal, and then times 3 years. When you multiply those three numbers together, you should get $117. So what does that $117 really represent? What that means is, after 3 years, if George deposited $1,560 that earned a 2.5% simple interest, he's going to gain or earn an extra $117 for leaving it in his savings account. All right, the next example is your turn, so go ahead and pause the video and try that one on your own. Okay, let's see how you did. So the principal here is $1,500. The rate is 3% and the time is 5 years. So if you multiply the principal times the rate, 3/100 is the same thing as 3%, times time, multiplying those three numbers together, you should get $225. So for this customer, if they deposited $1,500, after 5 years, they're going to earn an extra $225 in interest. Okay, moving on to example 2. If you deposit $500 into an account that earns 6% simple annual interest, how much interest will you earn after 10 months? Now, how is this example different than our first two examples? Well, hopefully you said because the time was given in months. Because remember, our time always has to be represented in years. So 10 months out of 12 months, because there's 12 months in a year, that would only be 5/6 of a year. The principal is $500. That's how much the deposit was. And the rate is 6%. So to find interest, we're going to multiply the principal times the rate. 6% as a decimal is 6/100, times the time, 5/6. When you multiply those together, you should get $25. This is another example of a positive interest. So you're going to earn an extra $25 in interest. Okay, we have another your turn. So go ahead and pause the video and try that one on your own. All right, now boys, you're probably not thinking about this now, but maybe someday down the road you're going to get married and you're going to have to save for a wedding ring. So this is an example of that. Now, the principal, or the amount borrowed for this situation, Mr. Smith borrowed $7,000 for a wedding ring. That is a nice wedding ring. That's a beaut. All right, the rate is 6%, and the time, 18 months. So 18 months out of 12 months, because there's 12 months in a year, that would be 1.5 years. So to find the interest, we're going to multiply principal times rate times time. And the interest here would be $630. Now this is an example of bad interest or negative, because Mr. Smith is going to have to pay back the $7,000 for the wedding ring, and then he's also going to pay an additional $630 that he owes in interest. Okay, example 3. Tim's parents lend him $100 so he can buy a radio-controlled airplane. They charge Tim 5% simple annual interest. What will be the total amount that Tim will owe his parents in 1 year? So this is an example of negative interest, because he's going to have to pay back in interest as well. So how much he borrowed from his parents, that's the principal, $100. The rate is 5%, and the time is 1 year. So to find the interest, we're going to multiply principal times rate. 5% would be 5/100 times 1 year. So the interest here would be $5. But this example asked us to find the balance. And what that means is Tim is going to have to pay his parents back $100 for the radio-controlled airplane, but he's also going to have to pay $5 in interest because he borrowed that money. So at the end of the year, he's going to pay $105. So that's what that amount represents. All right, we only have one example left, which is your turn. Go ahead and pause the video and try that one on your own. Okay, well, I first have to point out that Illinois is my alma mater, so I have to teach you a cheer that we did at Illinois. It goes like this. I'm going to say I-L-L, and then you're going to reply I-N-I. So let's try that. I-L-L. Did you reply I-N-I? Go Illini! All right. For this example, Kelly at graduation earned $750. She's going to go to the bank and put the $750 into the savings account. So that's the deposit. The simple interest here is 4%, and she's going to leave that money in her savings account for 4 years. So to find the interest that she earns, we're going to multiply principal times rate times time. So the interest for this is $120. But it also asked us what will be in Kelly's account at the end of 4 years. So Kelly's going to have the $750 that she made for graduation money, but then because she left it in her account without touching it for 4 years, she's going to earn an extra $120 in interest. So her balance at the end of 4 years would be $870. Easy breezy, right? Hopefully you said yes. Okay, if you have any questions, make sure you bring them to class. We'll see you next time.